Don't you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
You're here to make a significant announcement.
I've registered as an Arizona independent. I know some people might be a little bit surprised by this, but actually I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, a growing number of Arizonans and people like me just don't feel like we fit neatly into one party's box or the other. And so, like many across the state and the nation, I've decided to leave that partisan process and really just focus on the work that I think matters to Arizona and to our country, which is solving problems and getting things done.
So your voting record is pretty capital D Democratic. I mean, your views are generally that of a moderate centrist Democrat. How does leaving the party change how you do your job?
Well, I don't think anything will change about how I do my job. Arizonans sent me to the United States Senate to be an independent voice for our state, and I'll continue doing that.
Here we go. How about now, guys? How about now? There we go. Now I'm on. Yeah, my earbud was trying to pick up my audio. Sorry about that. It was Bluetooth. So there we go. Yeah, I mean, it was me with the Bluetooth. But anyway, yeah, basically she says, I wanted to, do this, and I know it's a surprise to some people, but it really isn't. I mean, we talked about this, and in fact, even on the live results page for the runoff, we kind of made it a point to put it up there, that Walker would have been, if Walker had won, it would have had at least some impact on this, all right? And you guys could hear her speak, though, right? You guys could hear Kirsten Sinema speak to Jay Tapper. That didn't interrupt that audio, correct? Yeah, all right. So basically, this isn't going to change much. She will be, because of the outcome of the 2022 midterm elections, the outcome this would have mattered more, or I actually think her decision, her political calculation, and how she chose to be an independent would have changed if Republicans had taken the Senate. Kirsten Sinema is a shrewd politician. She's not, and I'm going to read this because I got to laugh a little bit. I really do. She wants to be the further to the left John McCain maverick. All right. Whereas nothing really will make a difference. She will, in reality, be more like an Angus Young, slightly more, I don't even want to use the word moderate because it's not moderate. These positions are not moderate. All right. There's a difference between the positions the American people take and the positions that are communicated to the American people. All right, when it comes to winning elections and it comes to, frankly, just simply gathering enough ballots to win an election. The American public does not support the Democratic agenda as it is put out on the floor of the United States Senate. They don't, all right? But that doesn't mean the messaging reflects that. She will be a slightly less liberal Angus King Republican. Independent. Oh my God. For a couple of big budget items, for a couple of taxing, definitely when it comes to taxation, she will be less liberal. But she's not going to be the thorn in the side of Joe Biden and the Democratic agenda that people, I think, today are making her out to be. She will caucus with Democrats. They need her for committee assignments. That is just the reality. She voted for Chuck Schumer to be the majority leader. Okay? There is not much that's going to change here. Now, had Republicans won and there really had been an internal dispute and Mitch McConnell didn't get the votes, then that would have been a different story. Believe me, she's a politician. She is just somebody who is going to, basically put her finger in the air, friggin' finger in the air, and see which way the wind is blowing. All right. So I hate to tell you, but I don't mean to throw cold water on all these Republicans who are celebrating today, but I'm throwing cold water on it. This means nothing. Listen to her. Kirsten Sinema, why I'm registering as an independent. There's a disconnect between what everyday Americans want and deserve from our politics and what political parties are offering. I am privileged to represent Arizonans of all backgrounds and beliefs in the U.S. Senate, and I am honored to travel to every corner of the state, listening to our concerns and ideas. While Arizonans don't agree on the issues, we are united in our values of hard work, common sense, and independence. We make our decisions using our own judgment and lived experiences to form our beliefs. We don't line up to do what we're told, automatically subscribe to whatever positions the national political parties dictate, or view every issue through labels that divide us. Each day, Arizonans wake up, work, and live alongside people with different views and experiences, usually without even thinking about partisan politics. That's all very great, and all very true. All right, for the most part. Arizonans expect our leaders to follow that example, set aside political games, work together, make progress, and then get out of the way so we can build better lives for ourselves and our families. I'm not sure that part is true. When she says they expect our leaders to follow that example, set aside political games, work together, make progress, do we really? in this day and age? Do we really? And is this change that she's making, will that enable her to better do that? Does she plan on working together with Republicans on what? Issues outside of one or two things? Or is it 98, like Jake Tapper for once told the truth? Her voting record is still very, very left-wing. So is that really true? It's no surprise that Washington, D.C. often fails to reflect that expectation. Everyday Americans are increasingly left behind by national parties' rigid partisanship, which has hardened in recent years. Well, of course. Of course it's hardened in recent years. The parties don't agree on core values anymore. Registering as an independent and pretending to be some independent voice in the U.S. Senate when you're in fact still going to caucus with the same party, you're still going to vote for the minority leader of the party that champions, and both parties do. I'm not picking on Democrats or Chuck Schumer. They champion what she's supposedly criticizing right now. So how big or how bold is this move really? One party does not agree with certain foundational values that have governed this country, have been part of the national identity for 250 years. So, of course, we're going to have people who don't want to work together. To them, working together is simply caving to principles. If it was 50 years ago, and there was still a foundational, think of it as a Venn diagram, right? Where you have Democrats who hold some beliefs, right? And they're off to the left of the Venn diagram. You have Republicans who hold some beliefs, and they're off to the right of the Venn diagram, but there's some overlap there. And that overlap is a belief in freedom of speech, for instance. That belief is an overlap of freedom of religion, for instance. That belief is an overlap of the right of self-defense. Certain things that just happen to appear in the Bill of Rights. One party no longer believes in those things. The other party, in many respects, let's be honest, they violate the Bill of Rights on a, they went after due process first. The others just, there are certain areas, I would say that, without a doubt, the fights that are going on today, the Democratic Party is, violating the first two, 1 through 4. They violate the first through the Fourth Amendments. But it's not like Republicans are innocent here. It's just that the first to the fourth are core beliefs, and they don't agree anymore. So if we're being realistic, what is she talking about? Do Americans really believe that they're supposed to work together to destroy the First Amendment? The Fourth Amendment. How many people in the last 6 years have been deprived of the Fourth Amendment? Forget about 6 years. Metadata collection. The Patriot Act. By the way, Republicans started that. Do they really expect the parties or want the parties to come together and basically dismantle the Bill of Rights together? So is it a good thing that they work together to dismantle the Bill of Rights for the sake of working together? This is ridiculous. This is politician speak, folks. It is not bold, it is not brave, and it's not maverick. Everyday Americans are increasingly left behind, which is hard in recent years. Pressures in both political parties pull leaders to the edges, allowing the loudest, most extreme voices to determine their respective parties' priorities and expecting the rest of us to fall in line. But you did fall in line 97% of the time. In catering to the fringes, is the dismantling of the right to freedom of religion, is that fringe? She just did it last week. In catering to the fringes, neither party has demonstrated much tolerance. Oh, by the way, and she was helped by, 11 Republicans. Much tolerance for diversity of thought, bipartisan. Is it really catering to the fringes that has not left room for diversity of thought? Or is it the government working with big tech, big media, and federal law enforcement agencies to police the freedom of thought? Did she get up on her pedestal and start screaming about the government disinformation bureau? Did she threaten to pull the purse strings if we implemented such a Stalinist vanguard-like bureaucracy? Did she? Bipartisan compromise is seen as a rarely acceptable last resort rather than the best way to achieve lasting progress. And listen, that sentence would have made sense 50 years ago. Again, I just don't see the benefit to putting our heads in the sand and pretending as if there is common ground. The only common ground in Washington, D.C. is the one that the K Street lobbyists can buy from both parties. The common ground that deals with American principles and fundamental values and who the parties are, what they believe in, the system of government that they want to govern over, maybe a sovereign voter, maybe not. Actually, with some people in some part, they don't want a sovereign voter anymore. And that was very clear in 2016. If they disagree with the decision that the sovereign voter makes, they'll destroy they'll destroy everything just to overdo it, overturn it, or stop it, to block it. Is it lasting progress? Is that what that is? What is the point of putting our heads in the sand and saying, let's work together even though our people don't agree? The only time Washington comes together is to screw you. Payback against the opposition party has replaced thoughtful legislation. That I agree with 100%. Americans are told that we have only two choices, Democrat or Republican, and that we must subscribe wholesale to policy views the parties hold, views that have been pulled further and further toward the extremes. Although I'd be remiss if I didn't stop and say, she didn't seem to care about payback during the Trump era. Right? What did her and Joe Manchin do during the impeachment? She only cares about payback now that Republicans could impeach Joe Biden. That's payback, right? Let's get real. You think she's not smart enough to know that Adam Schiff was reading an edited transcript? You think she's not smart enough to know that the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC removed 500 words from that transcript, ladies and gentlemen? That's for you to be duped over. Kirsten Sinema's not duped by that. Believe me, she read the entire transcript. She didn't take CNN's word for it. She didn't take MSNBC's word for it. When she was reading those text messages, she wasn't reading edited text messages that were published on the front page of the New York Times. She was reading the entire body of work. And yet, what did she do? Was she concerned about whether there would be political retribution for this circus? When it went on, no, she got in line. She got in line. Most Arizonans believe this is a false choice, and when I ran for the U.S. House and Senate, I promised Arizonans something different. I pledged to be independent and work with anyone to achieve lasting results. I committed I would not demonize people I disagreed with, engage in name-calling, and get distracted by political drama. I promised I would never bend to party pressure. I would stay focused on solving problems and getting things done for everyday Arizonans. My approach is rare in Washington and has upset partisans in both parties. It is also, and that's true. Come on, let's be real. She probably is she would have had a hard time. That's the truth of it. I mean, if you want the truth, the internal polling shows that she would have a hard time winning a Democratic primary in the state of Arizona right now. She is, in fact, extremely vulnerable to a primary. Now, if she cuts this deal and pretends to be an independent, uses it, as I think Joel said in the comments, and if it isn't Joel and I'm not attributing it correctly to somebody, I'm sorry, but somebody wrote it 100%, that this is a bargaining chip. She is using this as a bargaining chip to sidestep a primary that she can no longer win. I work proudly with senators in both parties who have similarly rejected political extremes and forged consensus, helping drain some of the poison from today's politics. That includes successful laws. I was honored to right, but rebuilding our country's critical infrastructure, which she means there is Build Back Better, and she caved. Let's not forget that she in fact caved. She said she did not cave to pressure. No, she did. She said she was upset that political leaders expected her to just get in line. She got in line. She opposed Build Back Better until they sweetened the deal for her and bullied her. Rob Reiner, the former labor secretary, by the way, under Bill Clinton, that little dwarf, between him and Hollywood, you don't remember them tweeting, I should give her a smack in the face? You don't remember that? Because she wouldn't support Build Back Better? Next time I see Kirsten Sinema, I'm going to smack her in the face, they wrote on Twitter. They bullied her and she caved. She did not support rebuilding our country's critical infrastructure. She criticized it for being little to do with infrastructure and everything to do with progressive and left-wing wish lists and taxes disguised as infrastructure. That's what you said, Senator. Protecting economic competitiveness, addressing historic drought to help secure our water future. That's a load of crap. The water issue from the Southwest to the Central Valley is it is a demon of our own design. Neither party wants to address it. They like using it as campaign. They like using it as a campaign wedge issue. That's what they like. All right. Protecting marriage access for LGBTQ Americans. All right. Expanding veterans benefits. I'll give that to her. Boosting innovation. I don't know about that. Strengthening mental health care, making our communities safer. That's not true. That has not happened. Let's get real. More vibrant places in which to live and raise families. None of that has happened. Maybe she's worked towards it, but obviously the policies that she supported have not worked. The Phoenix metro area where she represents is an absolute, it's going to be a killing zone. The crime has skyrocketed in the Phoenix area. I don't know what these people are talking about. Unless you live in there are very nice areas, but Chicago once had very nice suburbs too. Because we built support in both parties for these solutions rather than pursuing more extreme party line policies, these laws are lasting solutions. Are they really? I mean, we just went over it. Are they really? Did you fix the drought crisis? You did not. You did not fix the water crisis. Did you make these communities safer and more vibrant places to raise families? No, you didn't. You did not. And in fact, anyone who is a veteran, to include myself, will tell you that if it wasn't for the VA Reform and Accountability Act, some of us wouldn't even have care. That's number one. But it is toned from the top at the VA. It is right back to being the way it was under Barack Obama, where they just don't give a damn. They may have accountability, but not accountability to worry about. And yes, they are less likely to be overturned by a next Congress, resulting in a whipsawing federal policy, greater uncertainty, and deeper divisions. Folks, for those of you who have been with me a very long time, for those of you who have read, by the way, Our Virtuous Republic, and maybe even Todd Zwicky, who also has done a lot of work about this, that's the rent seekers talking. Those are rent seekers. This is why they wanted the 16th and the 17th log rolling deal to begin with. It is too expensive for special interests to continue to buy legislation and favored legislation, or at least to buy politicians who will support favored legislation. It is too expensive if these people are constantly removed. Why? Because the lasting and the staying power of legislation. It is too risky that a subsequent Congress will reverse what the prior Congress did and what rent seekers paid for. Rent seekers meaning interests, special interests. In truth, if Congress is going to act, you want it to be dynamic. You want it to be able to say, I was wrong, this was wrong. I don't want to wait 20 years to fix it when there's a full-blown crisis. We should undo it now. We should take a better course now. What we did to stop crime didn't stop crime. Let's course correct right now. See, she doesn't want that. That is a rent seeker talking. And this is true. Americans are more united than the national parties would have us believe. That's true. It's unfortunate that they just don't know what side believes in what is true and what isn't. Which I can't, like I said, I can't wait until we talk more about why people believe what they believe and how they come to hold these beliefs and then how difficult they are to break them, even in the face of full-blown evidence that those beliefs were not rooted in sound logic or accurate information. All right, so again, because it is 12:30 already, and I want to get to a couple other things. I mean, the bottom line is here, folks, it's not going to be as big of a deal. That's a politician talking. Those are rent seekers talking. That's what that op-ed is. It's not some bold, brave piece of, or act of courage. That's a load of crap. And it tells me more than ever that I was right. That if basically, yeah, right. So proud of her for keeping the carried interest loophole. Exactly right. Right. It tells me more than ever that I was right. And had Republicans won the 2022 midterms in the Senate as well as the House, had they would have done that, she would have had a whole different, that would have been a completely different op-ed. So basically, they missed their chance to push Sinema further to the right. Sinema and Manchin are malleable, to say it nicely. They're malleable. People who constantly talk about how they're open to this and open to that don't have cores. That's the truth. I mean, you can be open and change your beliefs, like we're talking about, when you are convinced that you believe something that was incorrect or you had an uninformed position. But when you just don't believe in anything and you claim that that is some kind of virtue, it's a load of crap. That's a politician. Can we seriously look back at somebody like John McCain, who she's trying to emulate? And can we look back and really say that he was a man of like principle on public policy? The guy stabbed Ronald Reagan in the back after running as a small government conservative. Twice he stabbed Ronald Reagan in the back. One on taxes and the other on the Department of Education. You're so worried, conservatives are so worried about indoctrination right now. And during Obama, they were worried about Common Core. Now CRT. You're so worried about that. If it wasn't for so-called moderate mavericks like John McCain's virtuous men, you wouldn't even have a Department of Education to ram that crap through. So, that's where we're at. How old was I when I went in the military? I could drink. It was after 9/11. I had a waiting period because of what I wanted to do when I went in the military. So I had to go through something. That's a good question. I don't really remember. I'm getting old. I'm 41 now. But we have something called DEP, I think it was called, delayed entry, because there was only some cycles that were going through that year. It was a second cycle of a new program, and the first cycle failed miserably. So they were like trying to regenerate it. And I know I had to wait around for a while, even though I already signed. That's a good question. I don't know. I want to say like maybe 22. I don't know. It's a good question though. God, when it's, it's amazing how time like 20 years goes by like that, and then you just can't remember crap, or you DEP too, Russ? Yeah. I signed up, and it was like 6 months, maybe something like that. Yeah, I was totally duped. You were duped. I was duped. We were all duped. That's why it's like, I really can't just like all those, even so many of those things that we were just talking about. Kirsten Sinema wants them to find common ground when they don't even believe in common values that are supposedly outlined in the Bill of Rights. So, the right had a lot to do with dismantling the Fourth Amendment. Let's get real. And I don't know about you guys, but when we were all in, I think most of us, a lot of us, joined after 9/11, and we were thinking, and there's Norm, yeah, that's you too, brother. You too. And I remember most of us joined because of 9/11. And then, like, I remember the day. It's funny, my memory's getting hazy on events, but I remember the day when I was told we were going to invade Iraq. I remember that like it was yesterday. And everybody looked around like, why? And then you have the what I'm calling now the Mr. Rogers mindset, which is the president, and believe me, it's on the right too. The president must know something we don't know, and we just need to trust him. He's the commander in chief, and and then you heard all this, yellow cake BS stories. Yeah. Saddam's trying to purchase yellow cake, all a load of crap. Anyway, you got something you need to let me know of? Or
I was just letting you know child one is home.
Yeah, we have child one has, oh, come on. What is up with these targeted by these sites, dude? Peace out, girl site 18. My God, man.
It might be because I was shopping.
No, that's a.
Yeah, no, that's not me.
That's a sex bot.
Oh, I didn't know.
No,
they
find shows that get interactions, and they just hop on these things.
Rewind that. No. I thought you were talking about
Yeah. But in any event,
girl.
Yeah. Back to that. None of that was ever true. Meanwhile, even Jim Sensenbrenner, who was the author of the Patriot Act, was like, because moving on to, it was not just the war. It was the Department of Homeland Security. It was TSA. It was, and then of course the Patriot Act was horrible. No, it's all right. Everything's all right. I just don't have the lighting close enough to me. So I got oh, thanks. But yeah, I have a blur in the corner of the screen. Don't try to fix it. I don't want that light burning me down.
Sorry, I'm just busy chilling.
All right. Tell him I said hello. We got, I don't know why. We got, and that's another thing with these damn schools. They think no parents work more. There's this culture of, I don't know. It's a combination of like, I work through Zoom, don't you too? And I don't work at all. And it's this combination of like, you're just supposed to be around, and God forbid parents work for a living. So we're always trying to make it's a delicate balance. It really is. Yeah, I mean, moving on, Norm. Meanwhile, while you're dancing in the desert, what are they doing to secure your economic future? What are they doing to make sure that the country is going to be a better place for your kids that you're supposedly defending it for, right? Nothing. They worked together just fine back then, didn't they? So, I mean, my God. And it is true. The Patriot Act's technically older than 9/11. That is true. But the Patriot Act, as we know it in a post 9/11 era, Jim Sensenbrenner, who's a Republican, was he's of course not the only one who worked on it, but he's like the father of the modern Patriot Act. And even he is, he's gone now, but he didn't even support it by the time he left Congress, especially after they found out how badly they were abusing it. So I don't even know where, there was this, back then, there was this mentality, and this goes to like, what we see from liberals now. There was this mentality that it's okay to have that power and even to abuse it because it's our side and we're responsible, or we'll be responsible with it. We're doing what we have to do. The left, it's reversed now. the left feels that it's okay for them to deny the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. That's okay, because actually you're not just somebody who disagrees with them. You are now, in fact, the way the country looked at 9/11 terrorists, Islamic extremists after 9/11. That's how they look at you now. That's the truth. And our founders would have said nobody deserves this power. Nobody ever deserves this power. Right? So there, what the hell is hate speech? What does that mean? It's most important to protect hate speech. Look, it goes from, and she's Sinema herself mentioned the LGBTQ community. It goes from it's hate speech against someone like that, a group of people in society like that. Yet somebody like Frank Luntz on Twitter responding to Barry Weiss, who did the Twitter files, I want to get into a lot. Apparently, I'm on the search ban. It somehow went from hate speech against a race, an ethnicity, a religion, a sexuality, an orientation, to someone like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who had a problem with COVID policy. So it goes from that's hate speech, and notice he hyphens it. Dangerous and hate. Or what did he write? He wrote, and I'll get it. I'll actually get it right now. Hold on. He wrote negative/hate tweets. Boy, that umbrella got a lot bigger, didn't it? And of course, Frank Luntz is owned by Big Pharma. So is his friend. So of course he would lump in somebody who had who took an adversarial skeptic position, very American, by the way. That's traditional American. Whether you're on the right and it's after 9/11, or you're on the left and it's everything now, you're not supposed to just take the spoon they give you and swallow it. You're supposed to know that people in powerful positions lie. Big companies can be dangerous. Politicians with a lot of power will abuse it. They'll abuse it to hurt their political enemies. They'll abuse it to ensure that they remain powerful. That's Americanism. And unfortunately, Norm and Russ, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of learned that lesson myself. Always know that you're supposed to be. But at least, gentlemen, we've evolved. At least we've shown the ability for personal growth. I was wrong. I admit I was wrong. And I'm never going to let this happen again. Or at least I'm going to do everything in my power not to let this happen again. Because I don't know how many lives you know that are ruined, gentlemen, from that damn war. I know a lot. Adair, I think at the end of the day, it was close to around October 03 for me too, because I had to wait so long. I know that it was a while. It may have been longer than I'm thinking in my head, but yeah. So with that in mind, it's almost 12:40. I do want to go through Barry's thing, and that this we should have stayed on this the whole time, but this is ridiculousness the way they went after Matt Taibbi, who, by the way, Barry and Matt are both leftists. Notice that Glenn Greenwald and others like them are using the term hive mind. Have you noticed that the term hive mind is taking off? I don't care if we get credit for it or not. I was looking for a term to describe what I saw in public polling. I just didn't know what else to call it. And then how I saw it in the public polling, and then I saw it act out in the media, where if somebody just stepped off or stepped out of the hive for a minute, they were targeted for destruction or at best ostracized. Right? And it's very hive mind like. But I don't care who gets credit for it, as long as it just gets out. Because I think it's very, very important. Very important. All right. So that we look at it in that way, All right. Let's check out. Let's see if we get to. Am I gonna make it before a break? You know what? Let's do before we talk about the Twitter, the Twitter files, whatever you want to call them. Which unbelievable. The revelation that Baker was involved, which came first from Talibi, and then the reaction, the attack against him is just unbelievable. The twists, the intellectual contortions, and they're not they're intellectually dishonest, but they're contortions that they go through to be able to justify what they're saying, when very clearly what he was reporting was not in dispute, and it was not the veracity of it wasn't in doubt. Yet it's off the Hive. It's out of the Hive. He broke from the Hive. So there has to be some kind of swarm. Unbelievable. And then Barry Weiss extended it into, very clearly, these not just censorships of stories and, certain topics. I mean, they're topics, guys. I mean, if you're thinking about it, they were looking for topics to remove from people's view. And this is why I tell you again, if you're a member of Locals, People's Pundit, there it is, peoplespundit.locals.com, or if you're a supporter, do not miss the book club on Sundays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if we do miss Sundays, like happened prior Sunday, make it up during one day out of the week, because then everybody would know. And if you didn't see it, if you sign up, go find Myths of Empire, the book club playlist, and you'll see where we went over Myths of Empire. And several episodes are on cartelized systems or different variations of systems. This is a cartel. This is not a democratic system, because information is being not even controlled. That's not the right word. Information is not free flowing. The credibility of information is not based on honesty or track record of honesty. It's not. It's based on circular reporting and the cartel backing up the cartel. So this is no longer a democratic system. This is a cartelized system. And you can have a democratic system where there are cartelized coalitions, but they're never able to really grab that much power. Here, unfortunately, they dominate it. And I hate to tell everybody, but it's much more like Germany during the era of the Great Wars. How information is controlled and how industries come together to push the same agenda. And there is a controlled opposition, but there's not much they can do about it. And information is just streamlined and, fit. It's Goebbels-like. Very Goebbels-like. Japan had a cartelized system during the pre-World War II era. So, because it's not just the MSM, Marvin. They are still very, very powerful, as you can clearly see, but it's not just them. It's then Netflix, when you turn on some show and they bake something into the cake that reinforces what they're saying, pushing cultures and messages. Frank and I, and quite frankly, we're going to talk about some cultural stuff on the next time I go on. Quite frankly, I'll tell you right now, you can even see those controlled oppositions, like in the entertainment industry, for instance. The Hallmark Channel. It's clearly not a member of Tinseltown, but at the same time now you can see that they are in fact buckling to cultural pressures. They are. Don't miss that, quite frankly, by the way. I believe that's December 17th. What was that? Here, I'll actually look at you because it's going to be a good one. But this is what happens because the cartel is too strong. It's the 19th, December 19th. Because the cartel is too strong and the MSM is being reinforced. And I don't even know if we should just call it big media. That's being reinforced by the entertainment industry, right? And then law enforcement, the academic experts, the think tank experts, they're all reinforcing each other. This one's credible. This one's not. They all use the same hive mind thought. It's not a democracy. By definition, it's not. Doesn't matter what the actual structure of the system of government appears to be. It's what I call hologram, I was talking about this economic system in I believe 2013 in our virtue. I was talking about the economic system, not so much the system of government, but I called it hologram capitalism. It looks like capitalism. It looks like a free market. But if you try to actually reach out and touch it, you'll see it's not really there. In fact, there are unfair competitive advantages that aren't in true systems, capitalist systems as defined and understood by Max Weber, for example. Max Weber, the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. That's the pursuit of greed. That's all. And there's nothing new or original about it. It's been around since antiquity. And we have always created markets to do that. Now the cartel even has an enormous amount of power in that system as well. Corporations. Right? Look at what happened to Atlanta. We're taking away the game. They just cave. Purdue runs for the hills. Right? That's a cartel. That is not a democracy or free society. And I hate to tell everybody, but it's the same thing with what Sinema is talking about. Why at this, what benefit is it to us to just simply put our heads in the sand and pretend that's not the truth? It is the truth. And some of the people who are trying to preserve these values that are under assault are operating within the framework that they still believe works for them. Because it has been the framework to address grievances for years, for the history of the country. But it's not real anymore. That's why it's not working for you. You can't run to a court system that recognizes a multi-tier system of justice, that recognizes a multi-tier class of citizenry. They won't give you reprieve. Right? Hell, you can't even run to the media anymore. It used to be the watchdogs of the halls of power. Because now they're the guardians of the halls of power. They're not being watchdogs. They're being security dogs. Here's the difference. Damn, it's 12:48 already, and we didn't even get to wholesale inflation. I'll just say this. Laura and I were saying today, like, some of this economic news these people are touting, they're so full of crap, and they're doing it on the principle of, you know, when you're at the bottom. Sometimes when you're at the bottom, obviously the only place you can go is up. Well, the same is true of things like inflation. When you're at all-time highs, sometimes all you can do is come down after you're done breaking the highs multiple times over and over again. But for instance, wholesale inflation, the PPI, year over year, final demand came in at 7.4. And because last month it was 8.0, everyone's like, yes! Yes! This is still a horrible inflation number. Wholesale inflation goes into your cost. It's the producer price index. It's the cost of production. 7.4 is still historically very, very, very high. And by the way, it was expected to fall more than that. So just because it's 8 this last month and 7.4 this month does not mean you should be jumping up and down from joy. This is a horrible number. It's just unbelievable. Forecasts range from a low of 7.1 to a high of 7.3, and in fact the consensus was 7.2. So it beat the consensus. And month over month it actually rose. October's month over month was 0.2. This month over month is 0.3. So while the year over year fell, the month over month rose. It's a bad report. Don't start celebrating until you see chunks come off of this number. Or at least a quarter and a half even of a continued trend down. That's a significant trend down. Not one that looks like it's going to bottom out at a 20, 30-year high. Because after the shutdown was over and under the Trump administration, the PPI and the CPI stabilized. This is a product of the last 2 years. All right, let's it is like a 12-step program, Rich. It is. The first step is to always acknowledge that you have a problem. That's right. And I think you're right about that. Some of us have gotten to that point, right? But then we don't have a step 2. We need to take like NA's bullet points and try to convert them to like this. Yeah. Sad. It's sad. You're right. I think a lot of people, and in many periods of modern American history, post hyper nationalism for the war in the 2000s, the Great Recession, post Obamacare, TARP bailouts. Oh, there were periods where people were like recognizing the core problem. 2016, definitely a watershed moment. But then there really is no like step 2. I think you're on to something there, Rich. I really do. And there's no step 2, so it's like, well, where the hell do we go from here? That's right. Because the institutions are so significantly entrenched, so designed to preserve itself, that we're looking toward the typical or traditional ways to do it, and what do I mean by that? I mean, elections, when that simply is not enough. And take that how you want to take it. I mean that it is not enough to elect a different party. They're both disgustingly corrupt. When there is, whether you love Donald Trump or you hate his guts, you cannot dispute that he in fact was truly independent. And look what happened when somebody who was truly independent became president. I mean, everybody allied together to make sure that they survived him. And they did everything in their power to destroy him. So it's like there's not, I don't think there's a traditional step 2, Richard. I don't know. I mean, it's something that we've got to give a lot of thought to. Because this isn't working. The pendulum has been swinging back and forth for years. Americans have been saying, no, put the brakes on. We're going with this party. You guys screwed up, Republicans. You mishandled the economy. You mishandled the wars. We're going into the left. We're going to give the Democrats a chance, and we're going to give them a big chance. What do Democrats do for 2 years? They push ideological agenda items. They don't address the problems of the American people at all. So the country swings back, says, here, Republicans, we're going to give you some power. They fail them. They just reelect Barack Obama because, hey, at least he's better than Mitt Romney, the job killer masquerading as a job preserver and creator, the turnaround expert. Oh, like as if Americans are dumb. He saved the Olympics, so he's the guy to save our country. Meanwhile, Barack Obama's putting on the widowed husband of a woman whose company was dismantled when she had cancer. Mitt Romney took away their Cobra. I don't mean to laugh because I'm not laughing at this. I'm laughing at how dumb this process is. Just really silly. It's just getting really, really silly. Then, of course, Trump comes along because Republicans failed people over and over and over and over. And they failed them when they were the ones, speaking of masquerading as the adults, right? We're the conservatives. We're the sane ones, and we're grounded. We're going to Richard Nixon this puppy. And they were just full of crap. Always full of crap. So the country said, to hell with this. I'm picking Donald Trump, and I want him to wreck it all. Wreck it all. You screwed me. I'm going to screw you with this vote. I just don't think Americans understood what they were truly asking for when they elected Donald Trump. I don't think they were really ready for the fight that they stepped up to when they elected Donald Trump. I don't think they fully appreciated what it meant and what it would entail. And it was just easier for so many of them to go back to sleep. Step 2, Richard, you really got me thinking. Step 2. Profound stuff over there. I think you're right. I really do think you're right. Am I open to starting a think tank? Are you open to starting a think tank to develop better campaign strategy? Have you heard of Eric Hoffman? He's a political scientist based in the UK. I have heard that name indeed, and yes, I am open to that. In fact, I haven't discussed it here, but there are a lot of, like, how did we win so many of these primaries only to have Kevin McCarthy come and tell my clients they have to get rid of me? How did we win so many of these? We had a lot of, Barnes and I have been talking about this and implementing a lot of this for a very long time in areas where we saw fit and we thought people were good people. And believe me, it has nothing to do with the name at the end of the person's, or the letter at the end of the person's name. I just, for instance, I think I'd work for Tulsi Gabbard. I really do. Why? Because I believe her. Because I believe she believes what she's saying, even though I don't share some of her beliefs. Personally, I think she's honest. So that's someone I would at least think about. But some of the other ones are just such nutcases. Ego, it's just Trump, egomaniac. They're all egomaniacs. All of them think that they could be president one day. All of them. I'm telling you. So yeah, that is something that I think we've, and I don't know how much I really want to say this, but Barnes and I have had something for a long time that we just have never revealed to the public. It's got the coolest name in the world too. It really does, because it means something. All right. And I think we're probably going to be closer than ever to actually becoming more public with it. All right. But it's revolutionary. We wouldn't run a single campaign the way you saw a campaign run. Never. Never. They're running a game that doesn't exist anymore. Or they're playing a game that's not even running anymore. I don't know how else to put it. They're way behind. Way behind. So, and by the way, do you know how much Raphael Warnock paid his door knockers to go knock on doors? And I can tell you right now, I'll tell you, working with people, I'll tell you exactly right now how much Republicans will pay their door knockers. Maybe $11, $13 an hour. You know how much Raphael Warnock paid his door knockers? $42 an hour. 42. So, it's just something I wanted to throw out there. Damn, I'm way over. Let's take a word from our sponsor real quick, shall we? By the way, Blondie makes a great gift. You're making a great choice. I'm telling you right now. It is. I didn't even think to suggest them, Blondie, as good gifts. But they are. They are. What I suggest them as is a backup plan for your family. And of course, I'm talking about 4 Patriots. And of course, we appreciate, Blondie, you and everyone else who do support our sponsors for supporting us. That is a great gift. And I'm not going to, well, you know what? I should shut up. I'm talking publicly. What if they want to show? And I'm so glad I didn't say your real name, because then I really would have been screwed, right? You'd have been like, you idiot. You just gave away the Christmas present. I'm so glad I stopped right there. All right, look. We're just talking about the PPI, for crying out loud. Food shortages could be coming, even in the U.S. Don't doubt it for a second. Drought, inflation, and yes, even those new government policies that Kirsten Sinema wants us to be so bipartisan about are pushing America's food supply to its breaking point. And that's why survival food is more important than ever. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits like Laura and I have done for our family. Not ordinary food here, folks. We're talking good for 25 years, super survival food. It's hand-packed right in a family-owned facility in the US of A. And their kits, they're compact, they're sturdy, they're water resistant, they're light resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. Go to 4patriots.com/TPP for the People's Pundit. 4patriots.com/TPP to get your 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after the order, plus 10 free gifts and free shipping. And those free gifts are not knick-knack free gifts. All of them we found to be extremely useful. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com/TPP to build your own stockpile today. And if you're surfing their website and looking at so many of their other fantastic, and they do have fantastic products, don't forget to use the promo code TPP10. That's TPP for the People's Pundit, 10 to get 10% off site-wide today. All right. By the way, speaking of which, we were just talking about charities and stuff like that. I got very few suggestions for maybe there just aren't a lot of them out there, or maybe the audience doesn't know, but I guess I expected to get more suggestions for groups that we can support that do work on addiction. And it doesn't necessarily mean, helping people get out of the initial thrust of addiction. I don't know what I just want suggestions so I can sift through them and see. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's helping people who are now 6 months out of addiction and need to find that place. Because I got to tell you, one of the most dangerous times for an addict is 6 months down the road when the fog is gone. And then you get an apartment or something and everything just seems good. That's when, I had this guy's great guy, such a huge help. His name was Rob. He used to call them the Legion of Doom. That's when the you know what? You're all right. The voice comes back to dupe you. So maybe it's somebody who helps, people get through that time period. I don't know yet. I just know I am getting older and I feel like I could be doing more. And I really don't do enough in that area as much as I think I have done in the past. It's nothing compared to what I think I should be doing. So I really thought I was going to get more suggestions. I've looked, but I'm hoping somebody has some personal experience that they can share with me, that they said, you know what, this group helped me. This group helped my brother. This group helped my wife, my husband, who knows? And it meant that much to me. And this is the impact it had on our lives or my own personal life. I don't know. Send them along. Laura will gobble them up at the end of the shows. You got 3 last time. I was like, really? That's it? Or 3 altogether, and I think 2 only had to do with addiction-related stuff, Well, and honestly, Gaylord, arresting them is the first step. I'm telling you, and I'll be the first one to admit that. This is the problem with this catch and, like New York, for instance, right? Sometimes when it comes to addiction, you need them to dry out for a couple of days so you realize you've hit rock bottom. If they're just released, then they're released back into the throes of addiction. And they're not thinking about the charge they may have caught. They're thinking about getting their next fix and then, forgetting about it. You need them to mellow in the, oh my God, I may have ruined my life. What have I done to my family? What have I done to myself? I don't think liberals understand how truly harmful those policies are. It's not mean or not, it's not compassionate to let them out. In fact, it's the opposite. Because then they just go find another needle or find another bag or find another pill or find another drink to forget all about it instead of drying out and confronting it. It's that textbook. I don't know what else to call it, but it's true. It's textbook academic stupidity. Like, you're so educated, you have no common sense. You have no street smarts at all. So the negative impact from something that just goes right over your head because you have no street smarts. It's so stupid. Yeah, you got to have all of life doors get slammed in your face. That is exactly, otherwise you will not want to get better. You will never get sick and tired of being sick and tired. All right. You got to hit rock bottom. Have to hit rock bottom. Tell you what, between Russ or Richard's comment before and then this, I think we may be on to something profound today, folks. I'm serious. We got to change our thinking. All right. One more word here. Getting to be, what are we at now? December 9th. Getting to be the end of the year. You may be wondering about what you could do with, some of, what you have left over. You want to protect the power, the value of your currency, or you want to diversify. Maybe you have a 401k you want to roll over. I'm telling you, do what I do. You know, like I'm looking at this economy and I'm saying the last time this happened, it tanked, the dollar lost value, price of oil quadrupled. I've seen, you know, similarities. The best thing I want to do, at the very least I want to do, is diversify. You know, the link is tpplikesgold.com. That's tpplikesgold.com. I'll tell you right now, it's TPP like silver right now. And so does GOLDCO. And if you go to their site and check them out, fill that out, you get your free kit and have a conversation with someone. If history repeats itself, we could see this happen again. And you don't want to miss out on what could be a fantastic opportunity and definitely a chance to protect your retirement savings with gold and silver. You could get up to $10,000 or more in free silver just for doing it. It's a rare opportunity. So visit tpplikesgold.com. That's tpplikesgold.com. And, you know, I'll be honest. You know, I think the deal was like 5%. And I'm talking about 5% free. That is not shabby. And I'm modest. I'm meek. You know, I don't have what some of you may have to drop down. But it's a good opportunity. All right. Let me take maybe a 30-second break to drink some water or something like that. And when we come back, we'll just flatly, and I've been trying to answer some questions as we go here, you know, but you know, trying to hit things as we do this, you know, but yeah, so much for that not shadow ban thing. When we come back, I'll tell you right now, we do in fact shadow ban. Oh, the ramen dude, the ramen soup eater did a video on it. Saw that on Locals. Did he really? Yeah, because Jack Dorsey in fact did tweet. He tweeted, "We do not shadow ban." I mean, all of this was a lie. This was a total lie. And I want to go through Barry Weiss's at least some of them. We're not going to go through them all, but very, very obvious. It's a lie. Eric Hunley, our friend from Unstructured, and the Behavior Panel, which if you have not checked out Eric's show, I would highly suggest you do it. Fantastic content Eric Hunley puts out time and time again. And he said, "Yeah, man, you may want to look at this." Sure as hell enough, bam, I'm search banned. So, and I'm not surprised. People told me, I can't find you. I have to actually put your handle in the URL to find you. So I'm not surprised, nor that I not kind of know already. It's just, there it is for all to see. What will Republicans do about it? I'm not sure anything. We'll be back in 30 seconds. I'll be honest, I hate cutting commercials. I'd rather do the live reads and just have a free-flowing show, but we're going to turn those reads into more like commercials. This way I'll just have that time to take the break. I hate scripted stuff, folks. I don't like it. Let's take a look at Barry. So I quote Jack Dorsey. Following up on this with a lot more detail. We don't shadow ban. And we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints. What a load of crap. Here's Barry Weiss, The Twitter Files, Part 2. Part 1 was Matt Taibbi. Part 3 will be Matt Taibbi. I highly suggest you check it out. A new Twitter Files. Oh, by the way, speaking of how badly I am, I'm not even allowed to get Twitter Blue. If I look on my iMac or on the computer I'm looking at right now, or I look on my MacBook Pro, it's there. And I'll even show you right now. Can I show you without showing you something important? There's Twitter Blue. Okay? So don't tell me. You look, it says you can only subscribe on the Twitter iOS app for now. Well, I know they removed it for some bug fixes and stuff. I never had it. David Giglio, he got it. He saw it, even though he's already verified. And he's like, "Oh, no, man, it's right there. It's right there." I went through it with him. I went through it with a ton of other people. The app was up to date. My app, my account was prevented from getting Twitter Blue. And I don't give a damn about their stupid check. What I cared about was the ability to edit and the ability to post within a certain time frame. You can edit tweets, and I actually think it's much, much better to prevent disinformation, real disinformation, if you accidentally report something or say something or state something incorrectly. The edit button is crucial for that, so you don't allow incorrect information to spread before you have a chance to correct it. And Twitter has always been more of a purveyor of disinformation, even accidental disinformation, because you weren't allowed to do that. You were supposed to take a picture, delete it, then post the tweet picture with a correction. By the way, that is the standards of the Online American News Association, and they never followed it. The blue check corporate media folks, they never followed it. So much for the trust indicators. So much for the trust initiative. What a load of crap. We followed every single trust initiative. You can go into the metadata in our website still to this day, peoplespunditdaily.com, and you will see the Twitter, the structured data for the trust initiative. We followed everything to the hilt. We never were fact-checked. Never. Not one time. In fact, for the longest time, Google gave us the structured data markup for what were then called claim review cards. Now we know them as fact checks. We were such a trusted partner with them that they, in fact, gave us that before many, many big news organizations were able to use it. Why? Because I built, on my free time, I built the WordPress Google News plugin, even though I have absolutely no training in PHP or JavaScript. I was freaking bored one day, and I decided to learn it like I like to learn foreign languages. Gave it to them for nothing. When they had the editor's picks widgets, I decided, wouldn't it be nice if I uploaded to the WordPress repository a plugin for smaller companies who don't have these things? And they can easily, using a plugin, create what was then called the editor's picks widget. Every site who was indexed by Google News was allowed to pick several stories that they believed were great stories and that they could use for their widget for people who followed them on Google News. It's probably still in the repository to this day. That's me. I built it. I was bored. I was bored, and I thought it could be helpful to alternative media because they didn't have the budget that the big companies had. And this is what I get. I get a leak from James O'Keefe at Project Veritas saying they blacklisted me, and I get search banned by Twitter. A new Twitter follows investigation reveals that teams of Twitter employees build blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret, without informing users. Twitter once had a mission to give everyone the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. Along the way, barriers nevertheless were erected. Here's for people like me and others who have been around a really long time why we know this is the biggest load of crap. These people who defend this and the corporate media shills like Brian and others at MSNBC, we remember the promise that was big tech and social media. They wanted to spread information, which could then spread probably liberty, right? Because the more information you have, the more informed the population is in a society, and the more they can hold their leaders accountable. They did not deliver on that promise. I'm so glad that Barry decided to put the mission statement up there, because that was their promise to us. And while they operated under the false assumption that they still believed in that mission, they took our good nature for granted. And behind the scenes, backdoor, without telling anybody, they in fact did the opposite and became the tyrants that they claimed they would be key, even pivotal, even central in preventing. They just took the role of the tyrant. Take, for example, Stanford's doctor, Jay Bhattacharya. If you guys don't know who he is or never heard of him, look him up. Obviously, I'm sure many of you have. This is one of the most brilliant men I've ever seen. I gave a speech at the same place he did. I got to be honest, I was blown away. If you're an expert in both fields, like I'm a medical doctor and an economist, you're a smart dude. I don't know anybody who was on the left and was like believing in all the COVID crap. I don't know any of them as accomplished as somebody like him. The same way I could say with certainty that I know no political pundit on the left who has the scholarly encyclopedia of scholarship that someone like Thomas Sowell has. This is a smart man. And he argued that lockdowns could harm children. Twitter secretly placed him on a trends blacklist, which prevents his tweets from trending. What did Twitter accomplish? They harmed children, didn't they? They, in fact, did harm children. Because the lockdowns did, in fact, harm children. School closures did, in fact, harm children. To no real benefit. In exchange for no real benefit. That first year, they, in fact, took away upwards of 2/3, according to the study. Let's just call it 2/3. Different studies find different things. 2/3 of what a child would have learned that year. Gone. Erased. They're never getting that time back. Social interaction and other things that are really almost impossible to quantify. The impact, the negative impact. It's impossible to quantify. The deaths from despair and other indirect impacts. God knows, folks, there really is no equation for some of this stuff. So what did Twitter do, being the petty little tyrants that they are? They harmed your children. They duped you into harming your own children. Didn't they? Didn't they, in fact, convince you to hurt your own child? I think if you're being honest with yourself and you were one of these people who just believed everything, I think if you're being honest with yourself, you would have to answer yes. You made decisions that were bad for your own child. Suck it up and grow. Or consider the popular right-wing talk show host Dan Bongino, who at one point was slapped with a search blacklist. And I think that's what I'm on, isn't it? I think that's what I'm on. I think I'm the search blacklist. I think that's what it is. Twitter set the account of conservative activist Charlie Kirk to do not amplify. Holy crap. There it is. Do not amplify. You see it right there? Unbelievable. Twitter denied that it does such things. In 2018, Twitter's Vijaya Gad, the head of legal policy and trust, another just completely anti-free speech person. These people have made comments in the past. They don't understand nor for let alone support what free speech really is. They're very anti-American in their beliefs. It's the antithesis to American ideals. Those are the beliefs they hold. And Kayvon Bake-Poor, I don't know, head of product, said, "We do not shadow ban," they added. "And we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology." By the way, I just read that they were using the same quote Jack Dorsey used. To the T. What many people call shadow banning, Twitter executives and employees call visibly filtering, or VF. How nice. Multiple high-level sources confirmed its meaning. Think about visibility filtering as being a way for us to suppress what people see to different levels. It's a very powerful tool, one senior Twitter employee told us. VF refers to Twitter's control over visibility. It used VF to block searches of individual users. That's me. That's what they did to me. To limit the scope of a particular tweet's discoverability, to block select users' posts from ever appearing on the trending page, and from inclusion in hashtag searches. See, I can't help but to wonder, for all the people who are fawning over Elon Musk, I can't help but to wonder, I publicly criticized him. I added him for it and everything. I mean, if you're going to meet with good old John from the ADL and the rest of them, then, you know, I mean, maybe at the end of the day, you proved me wrong. I just don't like what I'm smelling that you're cooking. And I can't help but wonder, on multiple occasions, I added him and criticized him for looking like he was going to buckle and cave. Can't help but to wonder why I never had Twitter Blue available to me. All without the user's knowledge. We control visibility quite a bit, and we control the amplification of your content quite a bit. And normal people do not know how much we do, one Twitter engineer told us. 2 additional Twitter employees confirmed. I will say, though, I will give Elon Musk a lot of accolade over, you know, for instance, responding to Ian Chong, and who said, well, the question is, we know that they have censored and suppressed and put their thumb on the scale of U.S. elections. Have they done this to other political candidates around the globe? And he flatly responded with, yes, they have. They did. So what did they do to Netanyahu? What did they do to Bolsonaro? Right? What did they do to Viktor Orban? Because we all know who's going to be the target of this stuff. What did they do to Marine Le Pen? The group that decided whether to limit the reach of certain users was the Strategic Response Team, Global Escalation Team, or SRT-GET. It often handled up to 200 cases a day. But there existed a level beyond official ticketing, beyond the rank and file moderators following the company's policy on paper. That is the Site Integrity Policy Escalation Support, known as SIPPES. This secret group included the head of legal, policy, and trust. That's good old Vijaya. And the global head of trust, and I'm so afraid of saying that first name wrong. I think you all know. I'm so afraid that it's going to come out wrong and sound like something else. The global head of trust and safety, Yoel Roth. Subsequent CEOs Jack Dorsey and Parag Agrawal, another vehement opponent of free speech, and others. This is where the biggest, most politically sensitive decisions got made. Think high follower account controversial, another Twitter employee told us. For these, there would be no ticket or anything, like me. And that's probably why within 45 minutes of me being on Tucker, I all of a sudden was back without explanation. Because they just took it upon themselves to vaporize me. Libs of TikTok does tremendous work in the culture war, whether you agree with it or not. Tremendous work in the culture war. They rose to that level of scrutiny. An account that was on the trends blacklist and was designed as a do not take action on user without consulting with SIPPES. Look at this. Look at what this looks like, folks. Look at it. Wow. IP addresses can be accessed for various purposes. This is just crazy. This is what they see when they look at the accounts, just so you understand. The account, which Chaya Raichik began in November 2020 and now boasts over 1.4 million followers, was subjected to 6 suspensions in 2022 alone. Raichik says each time she was blocked from posting for as long as a week. Twitter repeatedly informed Raichik that she had been suspended for violating Twitter's policy against hateful conduct. But in an internal SIPPES memo, you should probably want to read this, Frank. Put the taco down, Frank, and read this memo from October 20. Because so far, what are we talking about, folks? We're talking about a doctor and a economist talking about the impact of COVID policy on children. And we're talking about the Libs of TikTok culture war account. What is Frank referring to here when he says, what was it? Harmful, hateful, whatever, right? Negative or hateful. Because even Twitter isn't really believing their own justification. Here's what it says. Lives of TikTok has not directly engaged in behavior violative of the hateful conduct policy. So, Frank, what the hell are you talking about? Did Pfizer write that up for you, Frank? Did Pfizer write that tweet up for you, Frank? I bet you he did. They did, right? I wonder, Frank. I wonder what makes you different than the doctors who just wrote blue paper prescription after another to get like free trips to Hawaii for Percocet. What separates you from the pill pushing mills, the pill pushing doctors who basically sold their soul to Purdue Pharma? I don't see a difference. I don't know how you do. Site policy recommends placing libs of TikTok, not verified, in a 7-day timeout at the account level, meaning not for the specific tweet, based on the account's continued pattern of indirectly violating Twitter's hateful conduct policy by tweeting content that either leads to or intends to incite harassment against individuals and institutions that support LGBTQ communities. Folks, libs of TikTok would post stuff like a drag person grooming a underage kids, or schools inviting a drag to come and make inappropriate displays of adverse behavior. I'm trying to be like nice here. That's hateful. Are you serious? So when do we just cross over to the area of you're inciting hate against pedophiles if you think that raising attention to someone who is engaging in pedophilia is a problem? Like, so when do we just cross into that? That's where we're on the border of right now. Because I don't really care if it's heterosexual or if it's homosexual. If you are grooming a young child, and I have seen plenty of heterosexual grooms. I mean, is it as prevalent? Probably not. But have I seen a friend who may have had a little sister and we were older and other guys kind of like groomed her until she got to be of age? Damn right I have. This is a little bit something, obviously, on a bigger scale. It's cultural. It's much different. If we don't draw a distinction here, right, that this is unacceptable behavior regardless of who you are, what you are, then when do we just completely slide down the slippery slope into, you know what, you're the bad person for bringing up that this pedophile is grooming this underage kid? It's coming. It's coming sooner than you think. It is. There's no logical difference between the two. Because they want you to think, simply because they're a member of the LGBTQ community, that they have some kind of special treatment that they're entitled to. When I think most fair-minded Americans would say that's inappropriate behavior for both hetero, homosexuals, and whatever gender you think you're a part of. We continue down this path, and I'm telling you, it's going to go. We're headed right into the normalization of pedophilia. We are. Grooming is grooming. That's what she brought to attention when she's there talking about the targeting of these LGBT groups and people, individuals. There was an individual, if you remember correctly, who made a huge stink about how many threats they got after the video was published showing her dancing all over the laps of little kids. The committee justified her suspensions internally. You read it. I don't have to get into there. But the harassment of hospital and medical providers, insinuating that gender-affirming healthcare is equivalent to child abuse or grooming. Ladies and gentlemen, some of these that they're referring to were medical professionals, and in some cases, even parents, basically promoting the idea of their prepubescent children being chemically altered. I'll leave you to decide whether or not you think that's normal or what, you know. Compare this to what happened when Rachel herself was doxxed on November 21st, right? 2022, nobody gave a damn about her. A photo of her home with her address was posted in a tweet. It got more than 10,000 likes. Did they care that Twitter? at Twitter? Did they care that her life could have been in danger? What did they say? They reviewed it and they responded with, "We've reviewed the reported content and didn't find it to be in violation of the Twitter rules. No action was taken, and the doxing tweet is in fact still up." And I'm not going to click on it. So here's internal Slack messages, technicalities to restrict the visibility of tweets and subject. Yet Roth, the head of global global head of trust and safety, said to a colleague in early 2021, "A lot of times, SI has used technically spam enforcements as a way to solve a problem created by safety under enforcing their policies, which again isn't a problem per se, but it keeps us from addressing the root cause of the issue, which is that our safety policies need some attention." So in other words, they know that the safety policies are not being violated. So they're using other tools to persecute certain users, punish and persecute certain users that aren't in fact violating the rules that we heard so much about. 6 days later, in a direct message with an employee on the Health, Misinformation, Privacy, and Identity Research team, he requested more research to support an expanding, quote, non-removal policy in interventions like disabling engagements and de-amplification, visibility, filtering. Well, I mean, clearly he got that now, didn't he? He'd love research that would support doing this. Water, hold on. Sorry, sometimes people go outside the door and I just got to mute for a second so I can remind them to keep their voices down. No, I'm just saying that it's loud on the other side of the door. Loud. I muted it. She's coming in. She didn't hear me. I'm saying it's loud on the other side of the door.
Oh, sorry. We just found
I
Mr.
know.
Joe.
Oh, that's our elf on the shelf, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. So,
All right. So, that was what all that static excitement was over on. That's so cute. All right. So, and with that in mind, Talibi's coming with the next installments. So, there you have it. It would have just been great if they would have outwardly admitted this, right? But they hid behind the Twitter rules and safety, right? When in fact, that's a load of crap. Thomas is exactly right. The Libs of TikTok account doesn't make videos. They repost videos that these people who are now claiming to be victims made themselves. They made them themselves. So what they're really upset about is that somebody is exposing their desire to be sneaky and subvert culture, and in their intention to subvert culture. That's the real issue, is it not? With the Libs of TikTok? Isn't that the real issue? That they just shine a light on people who are otherwise very deceptive about their own aims, beliefs, and goals? Isn't that really what this is about? I believe that tweet is that comment is exactly 100% correct. We need to remember that she never posted anything. She simply reposted something that they themselves posted. Right. And information Dr. Fauci releases that's absolutely wrong. Telling, for instance, members of the gay community that they can, in fact, continue with their normal weekend adventures after getting the you-know-what during the monkeypox pandemic, that's misinformation. It's incorrect. The CDC actually had to issue, and they did it as a footnote, the cowards that they are. They had to actually issue a statement later because they first went along with it. And then they were like, you know what? This isn't true. you can in fact still spread it. You need to wait at least X number of days. And then at that point, it was 2 weeks. We had a show on it. Who really spreads misinformation? Public health misinformation. We had a show on it. It's all right for Fauci to be giving information that is dangerous to the health of the gay community. But Libs of TikTok is somehow in violation of... Are you kidding me? The World Health Organization, when they full well knew it was a lie, said that COVID-19 could not be transmitted from human contact, human to human transmission. It just couldn't happen. 2 months after they knew that was not true. And yet all of these accounts are the dangerous accounts. Again, when we talk about the cartel, that's why they are actually the most, they're the biggest purveyors and the most dangerous purveyors of misinformation. And that is true regardless of how big a single account or alternative entity could be. Whether it be me, Libs of TikTok, Dan Bongino, Dr. J Bettachair. Why? Because they're in the credible cartel. They're in the cartel that everybody listens to, and so many millions of people, not just in America, but all around the world, hundreds of millions of people would never believe they would lie to them. I'm just some personality with a bunch of followers. Dr. J Bettachair, never heard of him. Well, he's a Stanford economist and physician. Oh, okay, fine. Sounds good. Never heard of him. The CDC has the weight of the CDC behind them. Dr. Fauci has the weight of the National Institute of Health behind them. The FDA, the same thing. Pfizer is supposed to be able to speak with the credibility and the oversight that comes with the oversight of the FDA. So when they lie, nothing can be more dangerous than that. Nothing. The same is true of big media. When they lie and tell people that a duly elected president was a traitor who colluded with a foreign leader who was the leader of an adversarial nation, nothing could be more dangerous than that. Which is probably why some guy picked up a gun and shot Steve Scalise and 4 other people. Not probably why, I'm being facetious. It is why he did it. Go to peoplespunditdaily.com right now and type in Steve or type in Scalise and it's going to come right up. And you could go through all of the photos that the cartel didn't want you to see because they had their friends at Facebook pull it down immediately. Not because it's not true, not because it's dangerous further to society, because it's dangerous to the cartel. It's dangerous to them. It would show you and it would show everybody else that it was in fact the cartel's lie that led to Steve Scalise and 4 others being shot. Because he believed them. And why wouldn't he? They're the credible cartel. This is something we're going to have to confront. The fact that this is not, in fact, a democratic system anymore. This is a cartel. And the cartel is deeply corrupt, deeply flawed, deeply ideological, and tyrannical, authoritarian. And they don't care who the hell they hurt. They rob your kids of a year of not only academic instruction, but social development. They don't give a damn. What does that mean later for the humanity of a future generation? They don't care. They tell some lie that they think is politically expedient, and it almost winds up in the assassination of the House Majority Whip. Oh, well. Oh, well. Let's see. Locals. Let's hit up locals. Let's see what we got here. Lawn Man, exactly right. Exactly right. It's the same thing with Project Veritas. Now, they accuse them of deceptively editing videos, but it's outrageous. The amount of content that Project Veritas has. Same thing when the Center for Women's Reproductive Health, or whatever it was called, David DeLay, when he released the undercover video of Planned Parenthood. He actually did release the unedited tapes just to show people he wasn't deceptively editing. But right, I mean, Project Veritas is simply just showing people what comes out of the horse's mouth. Yes, James O'Keefe gets up there and narrates, but it's in caption, folks. It's in closed caption. Don't get mad because you got caught saying what you got caught saying. By the way, did you see one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious, private school in Chicago? Did you see that last report from Project Veritas? Again, I don't care if they're heterosexual or homosexual. If you're showing sex toys to my elementary child, I'm probably going to get old school on you. My Brooklyn's going to come out. You feel me? I don't care who you are or what you are. You show a butt plug to my daughter and you are going to the you-know-what. You're taking a trip. You love the public health. You love public health officials so much, don't worry, you'll be visiting them real soon. This is crazy. And what else? Let's see. Let's go to, we got through a lot on YouTube and locals. Let's hit up Rumble. Then we'll hit up yeah, and you know what? Is it look at the grifter Milo Yiannopoulos. He was canceled because he spoke out against being groomed at a young age. That is, in fact, when they really took a shining to him, isn't it? When he really began to tell his story, it's when they began to find all of these other, and I'm not saying that some of the comments he made were not outrageous. They were, but again, freedom of speech is to protect the most egregious speech out there, because the most unpopular speech is often the speech that we need the most at any given time in an era. So I'm not saying there aren't things we can't disagree with that come out of the mouths of like Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos, but it's not like Milo hadn't said things. And by the way, I met Milo. He was really nice to me, but it was years ago. I was at a party or something. He just was at the party as well. But it was not like they didn't have, I think you're right about this, P-Dub, that they had a wealth of other examples that they could have went after Milo on before. And it's just, they didn't use them to take him out. They canceled him finally and fully when he had begun to speak out about what had happened to him at a young age. And I do think you're onto something there. I did. Let me see. And I think you mean Burks, right, Mary? Dr. Burks? Deborah Burks? Did you hear what Bannon's guest said about Pence's book? He said Penn set Burks out on the 50-state school lockdown tour. Yes, and I did hear that before. I don't know what book you're talking about, but I have heard in the past that Pence was the engineer of the school lockdowns. So he was the engineer of getting the administration on board with it. And that Burks, I've heard her make comments myself about, whatever damage will be done to children is necessary, and you had Fauci make the economic argument aspect of that, while Burks made the school closure argument. And remember, Fauci said it's economically inconvenient. You remember that? This goes back to the first segment. That's a good one. Disagreeing with me, John McCain not being a man of principle. He says, no, he was in fact a man of principle, principally keeping himself in power. Exactly. Exactly. All right, let's get to some from Getter. Got to scroll through Getter here. We are, in fact, he's basically saying do a poll to see how much skepticism is growing when it comes to, like, will turnout be hurt by how much skepticism is out there surrounding the machines? And, you know, you wouldn't care if God is on the ballot. He sees a machine, he's not going to vote. I absolutely think, and I'll be honest with you, I've made several suggestions, and I'll tell you, it's very disappointing how many people, folks, I've told in the last month that they better gauge skepticism surrounding early voting, surrounding vote by mail, of course, surrounding different, you know, I mean, look, Mike Lindell made a lot of hay about machines, and a lot of people listen to him. So they better start gauging skepticism, because they're going to have to compete at this game. And I got to tell you, 90% of people I've tried to explain this to in the last month are blowing me off. And I mean, people are going to run for office. They think they're good. They think they're red areas. Listen, Price, the former Secretary of Health and Human Services, that district is gone. Now Democrats represent it. Karen Handel was able to hold on to it by about 5 points with a special election. But it was a 20-plus point R district, and now it is a Democratic district. So why? Vote by mail and drop boxes. I mean, yeah, there was some demographic shifts going on there, but they really locked it in. And I see a lot of Republicans thinking, oh, no, we did better this year. We're going to be just fine. Okay. Do you. Suit you. But it's not wise. Pence is a Koch brother tool. Absolutely he is. Mike Pence? Absolutely. I mean, listen, for the longest time, he was at least a somewhat loyal vice president. But there had been people like myself who, from the very, very beginning of the Trump administration, had been trying to explain that a lot of this undermining, especially on foreign policy, especially on election integrity. Don't you remember that Donald Trump appointed Mike Pence as the chairman of the Election Integrity Committee, and he did nothing? But a lot of the undermining on his policy in Syria and Afghanistan, and by the way, stupid Morning Joe. I remember when Donald Trump released this many terrorists and he didn't get anything in return. He was negotiating the end to the Afghan war, you stupid idiot. But of course you know that. You're just a dishonest shill. You're a total shill. There's plenty of things to criticize Donald Trump about. To fabricate things like that or take them wildly out of context is unbelievable. Joe Biden made a bad trade. Just admit it. Like Barack Obama made a bad trade for Bo Bergdahl. Just admit it. Let's get real here. Donald Trump did that because he was negotiating. He was trying to show good faith effort to get the Taliban truly to the table to negotiate an end to the Afghan conflict. And I think you can expect Carrie Lake's lawsuit to drop today, I think. Why should we trust of mail-in voting anymore when it gives them multiple days to filter through? There could be a more, and this is Barnes and I, Barnes and I will have discussed this before. You have places like Florida where I think you can just flatly trust it, but there are other places like Arizona, which I think once you read, it will be a public document. I don't think it's any secret anymore that I did in fact write an analysis for the court for the lawsuit in Arizona. Okay, so you're going to read it. I don't think I have to hold that as a secret because you're all going to know very soon anyway. So you take an area like Maricopa, and I can understand that, but there may be a way where you can kind of be smart about when you mail them in, that you give them very little time to see how many votes they may or may not need, to harvest because it's strategic, right? Every state would be slightly different, but for the most part, they're going to have to do it because look at what happened in Maricopa. You could easily have a wrench thrown into the system. And I'm telling you guys, I mean, the number I came up with, I think many of you not came up with, that's the math. Based on the margins and the areas where there were problems with the voting machine breakdowns, let's just call them, because at first people thought they were tabulators. Then the officials said, then no, there was a toner. And then no, it was the yank and then whatever. The issues, the breakdowns with the voting machines, the areas where they caused the most problem. By the way, they were in areas that were more Republican heavy, especially election day heavy, which they knew because if you're a locals member, I put the map up there. They knew where Republicans vote most heavy on election day. They spent money researching that information and putting it up on a big old map at MC Tech. So, by the way, it was hanging about 50 feet from where tabulators are. So, I mean, use your noggins here. But look what happened. If you rely on election day, you're asking your vote. It's a logistics nightmare. You're asking your voters and your people to do in 8 hours or 12 hours tops what your opponents have been doing for 12 days, 2 weeks, in Arizona, a month. It's not logistically feasible. It's not. So, there's a bad actor could very easily throw a wrench in that. Or it could just be incompetence. And there could be a breakdown that day. The sad part about Arizona is when were the problems the worst? Between the 6 and 9 a.m. hours, it was the most hectic because some areas didn't know what was going on. There were not text dispatched the way they said they were. That is not what happened. Many people could not even get technicians, the phone technicians, the helpline. Many of them have a script that they go on. Here's what you got to do to fix this problem. If it doesn't help, we're going to have to send a tech out. They spent 45 minutes on the phone with the tech. It didn't help. They said they'll dispatch the person. He didn't arrive for yet another 45 minutes. Then they couldn't diagnose what was going on for another 45 minutes. It was a major deal, major problem. And in these areas, especially those door threes, I was going through some of those vote dumps in those areas. And Kerry Lake, for instance, the difference, it was the most straight ticket areas. This is something everyone needs to understand. It wasn't that they were the most Republican. You saw this argument yesterday from Nate Cohn and others that turnout was high. It's just that they voted for Democrats. The same is true of Democrats who voted on election day. If you are a Republican who cast a ballot by mail, you are much more likely to split your ticket. If you are a Republican who voted on election day, especially in those areas, you are much more likely to vote straight ticket. If you were a Democrat who voted by mail, no joke, Kerry Lake won 1% of the Democratic vote who voted by mail. However, those who voted on election day, 16.7% of Democrats who voted on election day told us they voted for Kerry Lake. If you were an independent, you voted for Katie Hobbs if you voted by mail. However, if you were an independent who voted on election day, they were backing Kerry Lake by 20 points. So some of these door three drops that we were seeing, outside of the already 70+% margins, we were seeing, closer to 80% support in some of those door three ballots. So in one of the dumps I was reviewing the other day, and I always check my math, triple check my math, Hamadeh won 79% and Kerry Lake won 78.5%. So why does that matter? It reduces the number of votes, suppressed votes, especially considering the disproportionate impact that these issues had in the most loyal, the strongest of strongholds for Republicans. It reduces the number of votes that additionally needed to be cast because of suppression. They were not cast, which I don't think anyone can seriously argue that there was not voter suppression. There was. The question was how much. And I'm making the case that it doesn't need to be a lot. And when you see the analysis that, Split Ticket put up on ABC 15, when somebody exaggerates the way they do, you should immediately raise your eyebrow. There did not need to be hundreds of thousands of voters who were disenfranchised in order to have altered the outcome of the gubernatorial election or put the result of the gubernatorial election in doubt. And again, it's going to be public, so you're going to see it soon. But It's a small number of votes because in these areas, Kari Lake was winning them by such a big margin. Republicans requested 3 hours of additional voting time because of the issues that had happened on election day. What they were principally concerned with, one group, there are really two demographics that were hurt the worst. One group, you probably weren't going to get them back with the additional 3 hours of voting, and that's a super senior who couldn't come and wait online that long. And believe me, we got emails from people beside themselves. I mean, the first time in their lives, they never were able to vote because they couldn't wait. And they went to multiple different locations and they didn't have, someone to give them a ride. This happened a lot. Anyway, or they did have someone who give them a ride, but they didn't have somebody who could wait around with them, for multiple hours, going to multiple locations, trying to find a place where they could check in and cast their ballot. So they did not vote. Then that group probably, or, many of them would not have been able to come back with the additional voting, they were just disenfranchised. Those who were able to come back were the second group that was hurt the most, and that is working people who went in the 6 to 8 hour attempting to vote before they had to go to work, but could not because, that they couldn't wait online and miss that much work. Now, the county wants you to think that the abandoned voter number is so low. Here's how many people we know checked in one place, but then flight, abandoned that poll station because of wait times and went somewhere else to vote. And they're saying only a couple hundred people were who left didn't vote. That's ridiculous. Those are dealing with check-ins and check-ins only, and they have been focusing on that number because they want, first of all, a lot of this doesn't reconcile anyway, which you're going to see. But they want you to believe that only those people who finally got to the door and then checked in would have been the ones who abandoned their post. People who pull up. People who get a phone call from their friend and say, it's 3 hours, dude. It's 45 minutes at this one and an hour and a half at that one. And, oh, man, I got to go to work before then. I can't do it. Maybe I'll try to come back after work. Keeping the polls open an additional 3 hours, many of those people would have come back. But they weren't granted that by the judge, so they did not come back. Democrats get extensions all the time. They got an extension in Lackawanna. Fetterman, he was granted exactly what Republicans were asking the judge to grant. Republicans are the only ones who seem to not get the extra time. And those people, both demographics I just mentioned, were monstrous for Kari Lake. In fact, most of the Republicans on the ticket, monstrous. An additional 3 hours, Katie Hobbs would not even be in the running. This would not have been that close at all. If they were granted the additional time to vote, it wouldn't even been close. We would have known that Kari Lake won and she won on election night. That's how that would have been it. Because we would have already saw how much she closed the gap. And I mean, we would have waited and people would have called it until those absentee ballots that arrived late in the late earlies were counted. They would have waited for that to call, but everyone would have expected that Lake is slightly ahead, and those ballots are not likely going to be enough to put Hobbs back in, even with Pima, even with Coconino. It's not going to be enough. And that was it. So, that's where it comes from. That's where the argument comes from. There's no doubt that if you leave it up to that 8 hours, whether it's intentional or not, to me, well, I mean, it's relevant, but the impact is what mattered the most. And at the end of the day, there's no doubt in my mind that what happened in Maricopa County did, in fact, alter the outcome, the inevitable outcome of the gubernatorial election. There's just no doubt. The only question is, how much? And I showed different scenarios, which you'll read. What if she only won? What if I'm being generous and I just use what if I just use the 70-30 split from some of these more liberal areas, because she was winning downtown Phoenix election day more than 60-40. But that's not who had the problem. The problem was in the more Democratic area. I mean, the more Republican areas. Let's say they weren't as high as 78, like some of those breaks were coming in. They were just more like 70, right? How close would that have gotten? Well, within recount territory. Anything above 72, Katie Hobbs's margin is gone. Is it likely she would have won more than that? Yes. More votes that were cast in those areas. It is not just like you can say with a reasonable degree of certainty she was going to get that margin. Why? Because vote behavior doesn't change. Not by batch, not by method. So she would have at least gotten that margin. The only question is, how many more votes would they have been able to put up on the board? The truth is, they would not have needed the entire 3-hour time period. They wouldn't have. And you can see the biggest impact was between the 6 and 9 hour, because as they look at the hourly report, because they always deliver the hourly report in Maricopa County, you can see that the 6 to 9 was much, much less than, and that's the morning culture vote in Maricopa County. That is the culture of voting in Maricopa. The early morning 6 to 9 block is the biggest block, yet it was extremely depressed, even compared to the other hours, which were ranging 14 to 18, 14, 18, 14,000 to 18,000. It's kind of ridiculous when you look between the 6 and 9 hour and it's less than 40,000 votes. Something went wrong. So even in the later time of the day, looking at some of, again, use an average, but even looking at how many vote totals were coming in the latter part of the day, all she needed, folks, was like 2 reports. That's it. And I'm being generous, because if they were in the most concentrated Republican areas, the truth is the amount of votes she would have needed shrinks because the margin gets bigger. You'll see the math. And Norm, is it a coincidence? To me, my personal opinion, I mean, the fact is, it would have been random. It would have been random. We would have seen the same number, or the same percentage, not number, because Democrats vote less on election day. We still would have seen a relatively close, plus or minus this or that, right? But a relatively close share of each party say they experienced the issues. The fact of the matter is, Republicans and independents were much more likely to say they experienced the issues. And when we plot them out on a map by congressional district, Biggs's was the worst. Andy Biggs's was the worst. It happens to have the most conservative areas in Maricopa. And then in the 1st congressional district, which was David Schweikert's. And when you get north in David Schweikert's district, you got a lot of downtown Phoenix. In David Schweikert's district, in downtown Phoenix, there were no problems compared to the more conservative areas in his district, which was overwhelming. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we have every single precinct that had problems. Plot them out. It's very Republican, and it does not at all appear to be random. But it's important to remember that vote method is very predictive of how someone is going to vote, regardless of other demographics, to include party registration. All right? If you're a Democrat, you're 17 times more likely to cross over if you vote on election day than if you vote by mail. All right? I mean, it is a big, 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 big deal to the argument, because they want you to believe some massive number. In truth, election day turnout was about 251,000 in Maricopa. Let's be honest. Most people were expecting about 302 to 305,000. She didn't even need an additional 50,000 votes, folks. She meaning Carrie Lake. She could have done it with less because the margin is so big in those areas. It's, to me, it is the worst instance of systemic voter suppression since Jim Crow. It really is. And by the way, well, I'll leave that out there. But it's 12:05, all right? Everyone have a healthy and safe weekend. Don't forget, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, supporters on Locals, Book Club, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics. John Mearsheimer. After reading Jack Schneider's Myths of Empire, couldn't have found a better choice, prescient choice, and both. But they're, competing viewpoints, even though they're both in the same school. It's just really, really great stuff. And I can't tell you how many useful tools there are in these I wouldn't even say this within the pages of these books that we've been reading and how important they are right now, with what's going on. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. I'm going to get out of here. All right. So don't forget Sunday, Eastern Standard Time. All the best. Thanks, as always, not only to sponsors, but everybody watching and everyone who shares, everyone who likes. We appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget, subscribe on Rumble if you're watching on Rumble. If you're not watching on Rumble, don't forget to watch on Rumble and subscribe. Same thing with Getter at People's Pundit, on Rumble at People's Pundit. Give us one of those little pluses. While you're on Rumble, you can see the little thing right there, and you can actually join Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, and become part of the book club. We got a lot more supporters than we do have book club members. Come on, folks. Chop, chop. All right. You're missing out. Telling you. And, of course, if you still watch on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell if you're a subscriber. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. If you're not a subscriber, then what in Sam hell are you doing? Subscribe. And still hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. All right, guys. Have a safe weekend. See you soon. All the best, as always. And for Laura, who's not near a mic, I'll just say it for her. Deuces!
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be